Drum heads look like this, and they sound like this. Sometimes they get old and stretched out just like people. Sometimes you need to swap them out like people. Ideally, you are hitting them as hard as you can all the time. If you thought I was going to say people again, then you got me and the GearCage's everlasting message of peace and love all wrong. It won't take long, but today I want to go over drum heads and why you should care, especially if you plan on recording drums ever. Think fast. There are many types of drums, but today we will talk about your average drum set: kick, snare, and toms. Each drum has a batter head, and unless you are Phil Collins playing In the Air Tonight live in 2005, you'll have a resonant bottom head as well. Wait, can we talk about this video really quick? This little stinker is walking around the stage like he's lost in a goddamn mall, pretending the drums aren't even there. This is the stupidest gimmick of all time, and I absolutely love it. The barnacles in the audience are made to believe that he may decide not to walk over to those damn drums, and he's up there with his face like, oh, these old things, must I? Then at the last moment, he finally sits down and releases a metric ton of absolute sexual tension that happens when that hog of a drum fill washes over all of us. You know what the fill sounds, so I won't play it, but here's my point. It's that he doesn't have bottom resonant heads. Why? Fuck you. That's why. It's Phil Collins. He can fuck however he pleases, and in return you get the honor of thanking him for it. At any rate, drum heads look like this when they're old, and they look like this when they're new. It's important to understand what can make a drum head go bad so that you understand the importance of swapping them out. I'll say there are 3 things that make them undesirable. Number 1, they stretch out. Drum heads are made of mylar and are very tough, so they respond to being hit over and over again by simply stretching out. Over time, this affects their ability to vibrate evenly and produce a clear and resonant tone. Reason 2, the heads get dirty. Drums are basically the loudest furniture I'm aware of, and they have a tendency to sit around and gather dust even if you play them all the time. Getting dust and grut and whatever else can affect the sound as well. 3, they just start to sound bad. See? This one is a little harder to detect. The reason I mention how a drum head can go bad is so that you understand that there is no universal answer to how often you should change your drum heads. It depends on these factors. I suppose if someone asked me how often I change my drum heads, I'd say, I don't know, every time before I do a studio session, like an important recording, and then when they just seem to get stretched out or dirty. Months, I'd say, maybe. I had this drum head on for years because I thought the triangle was cool, and the coolness matters. Also, it's worth noting that resonant heads rarely need to be swapped out. If you like the flavor of the head you have, there's likely no need to change it out. Take some time every time you change the batter head to check on the resonant head, and be sure to tune it every time you change heads. The bottom heads on this drum set are as old as the drum set, 53 years I think. Do they need to be changed? Nah. Now on to the actual changing of a head. It's important to remember to do this as equally as possible, like changing a car tire. Undo each of the tension rods and then take the head off. Quickly wipe the bearing edge with a cloth or Swiffer because drums get grody sometimes, and then place the virgin sacrifice upon the altar, the new head. Put the hoop on and then retighten all the tension rods with your little sausages. When all rods are equally tightened by hand, start tightening with your drum key. Start on one rod and then go to the opposite end, and then continue like this around the whole drum, going half or quarter turn each time. Now I can't really do the next part for you, but using your ear is the best guide. Typically the batter heads are tensioned a little tighter than the resonant heads, but trust your ears. If it sounds like shit when you hit it, then it'll sound like shit when you record it, unless you're into that sort of a thing. If you don't trust your ears well enough yet, go online right now and buy a Tama tension watch. Don't buy a torque wrench or any stupid shit or any other stupid gizmo. The tension watch measures actual tension. It's the best. I've been tuning drums since I was 12 and I still prefer to use this. To be fair, I spent a lot of time in my younger years cranking the bejesus out of my brass piccolo so I could sound like 311, but I stand by my past. This concludes what I wrote down for this video, so I guess we'll wrap up there. Change heads as often as you feel is necessary, and there's really no reason to be a snob about it. In the end, you are hitting these as hard as you want, so it's really not a big deal. Oh, one last thing. Go for whatever brand you like. I prefer Evans for snare and toms and Aquarian for the kick. No real reason, just because. Also, fuck nylon tip drumsticks, don't be a fucking child.